Well, good morning, everyone. Again, I'm John Keeter. I'm honored to be here, particularly with looking at the list of folks who are here, folks from the health industry, education, other services I see are here. And what I'd like to share with you are a couple lessons learned from our approach to change management and also performance management. You see that I don't have a title to the Office of Business Transformation. I'll give you a little bit of context of where we've been over the past 18 months. The Chief of Staff of the Army stood up a task force known as the Enterprise Task Force, and it's very common for military departments to do this, to tackle a certain problem. But his vision was, how can we do things better, taking an enterprise approach to some of our challenges to help him out to make some of the executional decisions. So we spent about a year and a half functionally align our key processes in assigning leadership to get a collaborative view of our problem making. Well, we've been pushing that type of change for 18 months, and then this past December, the Undersecretary of the Army, mandated by the National Defense Authorization Act, is mandated to build up an Office of Business Transformation. So over the holidays, we've been working the vision of the Office of Business Transformation. And so the Enterprise Task Force is now part of this Office of Business Transformation, and so we've been focusing on the next steps to help prepare the Undersecretary of the Army. So what I'm going to share with you initially is what we're trying to transform or change, the philosophy and the vision for the Office of Business Transformation, and then I'm going to get into some of the performance management challenges over the past 18 months and how that competed with some of the other priorities of change. And then get into some of our lessons learned for trying to develop that. So that's the approach. Okay, first I need to define the problem. And our problem is we really have a bifurcated army. We have an operational army that fights, and you have a generation force army that generates our product, which are our brigade combat teams that we give to combatant commanders, like General Petraeus, for example, to fight the wars. Now, before 9/11 and in the Cold War, this was a pretty simple alignment. We had a very clear enemy, very symmetrical. We had processes that were predictable, and we had the haves and have-nots of the Army. Like, for example, the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, that division was a priority. But my unit, the 8th Infantry Division in 1989 in Germany, was a lower priority unit. So the higher priority unit gets the stuff, lower priority units don't get the good stuff. And it was very simple. But times have changed. And since 9/11, the operational tempo has changed. And the operational army has had to change the way it fights and reorganize so that we can sustain this notion of persistent conflict. So now we took a very high-level division approach in tiered readiness, the have and have-nots, to breaking things down into brigade combat teams so that we can sustain fighting in Iraq, fighting in Afghanistan, and adapt to the current fight that we're fighting. So the challenge that we have is, well, how can we better align how we generate our forces better to get at producing brigade combat teams, the ultimate product to our customer, combatant commands, better. And we're doing it, but we're doing it with Herculean efforts because our systems are still kind of geared toward how we did business in the Cold War in general. We've made some adjustments to get at the current environment, but we really got to look at aligning our processes to do a better job of generating operational capabilities. So our drivers for the generating force are diverse demands. We got to be able to fight counterinsurgencies in Iraq and Afghanistan. But we also have to have the capability to fight a conventional fight. For right now, maybe deterrence purposes. You got to have that capability to fight the big fight if you had to. So that's tension. And you got to, it'd be nice to be able to focus, but we got to really do everything. The secondly is we're dealing in an environment of constrained resources. Our domestic and international policies are intertwined, and the writing is on the wall. A couple of years from now, the luxury of having a huge supplemental fund to fight the wars is going to go away. So we've got to figure out what really is important. What's the core things that we have to have, with the nice to haves, because that is the base budget that we have to deal with and plan accordingly. And also, we also have congressional mandates. We have a higher enterprise in which to align. Congress has been mandating performance assessments since 1993 with the Government Performance and Reformation Act. And over time, I think the services have been in compliance, but I think Congress is frustrated because we've got to do a better job of how we're assessing performance. And so the most recent National Defense Authorization Act has mandated that each service's Undersecretary of the Army become the CMO, the change management, Chief Management Officer, CMO. Okay, so that's where we are. It's now mandated. We've got to get better at doing it. And so I'm going to get at our approach that we're going to take to our Undersecretary of the Army within the next couple of weeks to see if that fits his vision. Okay, this is the philosophy of the Office of Business Transformation and the principles of what we're going to try to achieve. Now, the outcome-focused best value gets at, as an Army, what are we trying to achieve? And I'll talk to you about, or sitting down with the Chief of Staff of the Army to get his vision of what are those enduring outcomes for the Army to help frame our strategy. Alignment, both horizontal and vertically. That we've taken some steps to develop core enterprises, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, to tackle readiness problems, material problems, human capital problems, and so forth. So that's the inward-looking piece. But we're also got to make sure that we're aligning to the Office of the Secretary of Defense and our higher enterprise mandates. Okay, this holistic enterprise level thinking and integrated collaboration, that gets at more at tackling a problem less about command and control and who owns the processes. And that's a big cultural change for the Army, probably for any military service, because we're accustomed to command and control. We're used to, hey boss, tell me what your problem is, and I'll solve it. Now we're having folks get together in a collaborative community of purpose type format to wrestle with issues. And that's taken some time to take hold, but we've got some successes there. And what we expect is innovation as a result. Intuitively, if you get a group of folks, of smart guys to handle a human capital problem, we think there'll be some innovation that will come out. And getting transparency of research and knowledge, we think that inherently that will be a byproduct. But the vision is a one integrated Army management system, end-to-end, top to bottom, so that we're focused on our key output, generating brigade combat teams at best value, trying to get this cost consciousness into our leadership decision making so that we can prepare for what's coming in the near future with constrained resources. Okay, the three things that have been pretty successful with our change management approach for the past 18 months is looking at the governance construct, focusing on the key Army process, and that process is